Hello everyone and welcome to another devlog video for Homegrown, the casual farming game I'm making using my own engine. And this week I'm just going to be continuing on with the big redesign of the game's user interface. So it's the start of a new week. The last devlog video just went up yesterday and getting straight back into it today. Last time I was working on the examine panel for the objects. Today I'm going to be doing a similar thing but for the terrain examining tool. Which currently looks like this in the game. Hopefully it won't look like that for much longer though. So I'm just going to get straight into the redesign this morning and I'll show you how it's going in a bit. So to examine a terrain tile, you have to use this tool here, the terrain examining tool, and I'll make a better icon for it at some point to make it a bit more obvious. But yeah, I've just been updating the examine panel UI so that it works with tiles as well as entities, because they're a little bit different. And then I was just programming the movement so that it always moves to be on top of whatever tile you're currently mousing over. And then every time you move to a new tile, it updates the information in the examine panel. So for now, it's just showing the name of the type of terrain that you're mousing over. Some of the terrain tiles probably won't actually have any information to share. It's just going to show the name, like the grass tiles here. So I've just been tidying up the look of the UI when that's the case, when it's just a name, and that's looking a bit cleaner now. So I'm just going to take a quick break now and then I'll get started with adding all of the information and content to the examine UI. I was just doing a bit of work on the balcony, but it was getting kind of cold, so I've come back inside and I've started work on the contents. So firstly, I have to decide how much information I want to show in this panel. Again, I want to keep the UI pretty minimal, and I don't want to fill it with stats, so I have to decide what information makes the cut and what doesn't. The one thing I'm sure about though is that I have to show what buffs and fertilizers have been applied to a tile, because there's not really any way to show that visually in the world. So that's what I've started with. I've just been adding the information for the compost and the fertilizers. I've just been making / finding online some of the icons for the other buffs that you can have in your farm. You might remember from the pathway episode that there's quite a few different ways that you can add buffs to tiles. So for example, if you connect a vegetable bed to the house using pathways, then that adds a speed boost to your tools when you're working in that bed. There's still quite a bit of work that I need to do on the buff system in general, so some of this will change, but I'll work on that when I next work on gameplay. So this will do for now. And yeah, everything's progressing really quickly at the moment, which is nice. After it took so long to set up these examine panels last week, now that the framework's in place, it's so much quicker. So there's a lot more information that I could add to these panels. For example, how wet the tile is, how much compost it's got on it, how many weeds there are on it. But all of that information, it's possible to get that information just by looking at it in the 3D world. For example, the weeds, you can see how many weeds are on a tile. You can see if the tile has no weeds or if it needs weeding. And you can also get a pretty good idea of how bad the weed situation is. So I'm hoping I don't have to also add that information to the tile, to the examine panel as well. The last thing I want to do is to bombard the player with statistics. It's meant to be a very casual game. And as I said, I want the UI to be as minimal as possible. So I'm going to try and keep it like this for now, but obviously in the future, if through play testing people say that they want more information, I can always add more information then. So, getting to work now, a bit later than usual because we had a friend over for breakfast, which was nice. But I don't have too much to do today anyway. The only thing I'm planning on implementing today is some tooltips for the buffs so that you can mouse over them and get some more information about them in case you've forgotten what they do. So first up, you might be wondering how it's actually going to be possible to mouse over the buffs, seeing as they're part of a UI that itself is kind of a mouse over pop-up. So that's what I was working on first today, and the way it works is that when you're using the tool, you can now click on a tile and that will lock the UI to that tile, and then the mouse is free to move around and mouse over the buffs. And then if you click anywhere else, it goes back to following the cursor. So I've just been working on the design for the tooltip UI, which is coming along nicely. It's been taking a while as always. As I've said before, I don't have any sort of visual editing tool for my UI library, so when I'm creating a UI like this, I have to manually type it all out, which obviously takes a while, but it's fine, it's not too bad. So here's the finished tile examine tool. You can use it now to examine tiles, check out the soil, see what fertilizers and buffs are on there, and if you're not sure what a buff is, you can now mouse over it and it gives a little tooltip saying exactly what it does. So that's all finished. I'll be honest, I haven't got much done today. I spent most of the day in the kitchen. After the breakfast, I made a rice dish for everyone for lunch, and then this afternoon I was making a dessert because this evening we've got some more friends coming over and we're all going to cook pizza together. So I'll try and get more programming done tomorrow. Today was a bit cooking heavy.
Suddenly. Yes.
That's like a spender ruby and then you can
So the examine panels are done for now, and today I'm moving on to just trying to finish up all of the UI changes in the home area. The town area still needs a bit of work, there's all the shops to redo, so that'll take a bit longer, but the home area is almost done. And I've just been having another look at the icons for the buttons. After one of my previous devlog videos, someone was really kind and sent in some example designs for the UI, which have been extremely useful, and I've already taken a lot of inspiration from them. And one thing I really liked about them was the style of the icons that she'd used, and she told me where I could find them. So I've just been trying some of them out in the game, seeing how they look. I like how rounded and clean they are. I think it fits really well with the style. Not sure about the town icon. I couldn't actually find one for the town, so I had to kind of make that myself. It's meant to look like a market stall or a shop window. I'm not sure. Also, I think I messed up a bit because I made the line thickness way too thick. It's much thicker than in the other icons. So I'll have another go at that at some point. But now I want to move on to the inventory hotbar. I think it looks a bit dark, and I think Twisted Cat's design just looks a lot better. So I'm essentially just going to use that. Here's my first attempt at redoing the inventory a bit. It looks okay, but the stack numbers are now pretty much completely invisible because they're white, so can't see them at all. So that is what I will be fixing next. I've sorted out the item stack numbers now. As quite a few people suggested in one of the previous devlogs, I've added a little background to them to make them easily readable. And I think that looks pretty nice, so I'll leave it there. I'm actually going to be doing a lot more work on the inventory next time. That's the next UI that I'm going to overhaul. I still need to redo the item examines, and then the main inventory obviously needs completely redoing. Plus there's also some more functionality that I want to add to the inventory, like being able to move your items around and reorder them. So that's what I'll be doing next time. One final thing I wanted to try from the designs that were sent in was the stripy content bars. I thought that looks really nice, so I've been trying that out in the game, and I quite like it, but let me know what you think. It was actually a little bit of effort to implement this. The usual way that I do content bars is to just scale the inner bar, depending on how full the bar should be. But obviously if it's textured, that doesn't really work because the texture then gets squished. One way to fix that would be to do some work with the texture coordinates in the shader. Probably the better way actually, but the way I did it, because I already had support for it in my engine, was to use the OpenGL scissor test, which basically means that the inner bar always has its full width, and then you just tell OpenGL to only render one part of it, and it essentially just crops it to whatever bit you want to show. So that's what I did, just to try it out and see how it looks. So that's going to be it for this week. Another good bit of progress on the UI. Really happy with how it's all coming along. Obviously it's not perfect yet, but there's still plenty of time for tweaking and polishing, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to end up looking clean and decent, which is really all I was hoping for. Next time, as I said, I'll be working on the inventory, and then I've just got to do the shops and the upgrade system, and then the UI overhaul will be finished, and I'll finally be able to move back to gameplay, which I'm really looking forward to. Before I finish, I want to give a big thank you to the top Patreon supporters from last month, who were Matthew McCloskey, Daniel Surlove, Ingo Moore, Helson Taveras, Andrew Romans, Marais, Shadeless Fox, Kimo Tamio, Coda the Tyler, Ross from 2 Minute Tabletop, Nikat Asgadzada, Zanil Ambakar, Atomic Code, Walden Yan, Chris Naismith, Alan Lance, Dieter Reinert, Harry Chung, John Needham, Christoph Herpo, Adam Farkas, Hagen Vingard, Matthew Connaughton, Andrew Witt, Marek Mikolajczyk, Sean McCrory, Caffeine Coda, Timothy Gibbons, Alexander Chavez, and Neil Blakey Milner. So a massive thank you to you guys, and of course to everyone else supporting me over on Patreon. For this week though, that is it. So thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you all again next time.